Alright, Willie. How do we get the TBC transition correct? How to not fuck it up?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Today
Okay.
we're looking ahead at the Burning Crusade specifically, and the best way for me at least that the game could go in order to meet the needs of the most players possible.
Okay.
Ever since Blizzard's original poll that was sent out to a large number of players, there's already quite clearly a realization on their behalf that there is a demand for players to remain in Classic despite TBC being a thing. Which I get. I mean, people have been playing private servers for years and years now, and well, some people just like Classic the most out of any version of WoW. Or maybe instead those people who would rather continue on Classic would go back to alternate ways of playing the game, if you know what I mean. Because whilst I understand the appeal of a lasting Classic era server, I just can't help thinking it'll end up being a very small portion of players and basically nothing will be happening on other than peak time.
Yeah, I mean, like, what they would have to do, there is that demographic that just wants to play Classic forever. Right now in NA, what is there, like 20 or something Classic, like 20 or 30 Classic servers? Just consolidate down to 5 servers or 6 servers or whatever the fuck. Like, at least make those servers super healthy, and it doesn't matter at all.
On the servers that remain. That might be enough though, so long as people still get to raid or PvP in decked out full Naxxramas Abyss. But the content that's core to an MMO and usually keeps you coming back would have been long gone. The gear chasing, the character progression, the new patches or content phases. I bet near all of you watching have seen or at least heard of somebody getting that dream item or goal they've been working towards since Classic was a thing, and then just disappearing overnight the second they got it. Like rank 14, Thunder Fury, Hand of Rag, or just Biss for a certain phase.
The amount of people that I saw get rank 14 and then just quit and never fucking play again, it's astounding. It was like they went into Classic with this goal. Like, it was something that they'd idolized since they were kids. Oh, rank 14, oh my god. And then they did it, and then they just burned out and just quit the game. Full stop.
I feel like I'm not even being pessimistic here. I just can't see a world where this doesn't end up happening. So then, how do we go about keeping the crowd that's been campaigning for Classic happy, release the Burning Crusade, and not just have Classic kind of become a desert after a couple of months, and not create community divides between several different games running alongside each other all of the time? The answer has to be fresh, surely, but fresh with no expectation the server will transfer to TBC. Well, at least for the time being. Hear me out, this is what I reckon would be good. Oh, and this is obviously pretty idealistic in my opinion. I don't know how feasible any of this is, but here we go. So our current servers are progressive to TBC, meaning things go exactly the same as they did in 2007. There's no choice in the matter, we go forwards. On the day that the pre-patch for the Burning Crusade drops, our characters are copied to Classic Legacy servers, which will remain on phase 6 at the point they're currently at. With all the updates that have been put into the game up to then from vanilla or new ones from Classic. The copy would be on Blizzard's end, so you can't just recopy your character again and again to try and basically print gold, unless there is another good way around that. At some point down the line,
even SFON pretty much quit after that. Well, I mean, SFON is like a bad example, right? Because as a streamer, you're going to want to do whatever's best for your stream. So if he looks at his Classic streams and sees, okay, I get 3,000 viewers playing Classic, or I get, 8,000 viewers flirting with Ginny on stream, like, what are you going to do? Like obviously you're gonna do one versus the other, or playing like SFON gets more viewers playing Madden than playing fucking Classic WoW at this point. Like, Classic WoW at this point is just not that good for Twitch viewership. That's kind of just the reality, which is why I saw this comment saying, it was up earlier. It said I was gonna ignore it, but it's like kind of funny. It says Willie is a grifter. Like, grifter of what? Like. Classic is not, I don't know if you've noticed, Classic is not exactly that hype right now, dude. And it's not as if, like, being a Classic YouTuber doesn't, it's not as if being a Classic YouTuber pays that well either. So, there's nothing to grift to, really.
Classic Legacy servers would either open free transfers to try and repopulate realms where the realm population has kind of worn away over time, or more likely, merge realms to have your name / guild appear, followed by your server name, as not to require any renaming issues. I know even some MMOs have merged servers and made you need to pick a second name, but I'm not quite sure how well I go down in WoW. Even now, there's already a few pretty dead servers out there, and I predict a lot less people wanting to frequently play Classic than TBC moving forwards. There would be no expectation for the Legacy Classic server to be progressive at any point in time. The goal here is to keep the...
Let me see, because I'm curious, and we haven't done this in like 3 days. Let's do the Google Trend thing. Let's see where we're at. Google Trends. And this time, we're going to check Classic-TBC as well, because people always ask, I already kind of know the answer. It's going to be very low because Classic-TBC has not been announced, of course. But let's take a look at Google Trends before we move on, just because I'm curious. I like to do it every day. So the first search term, Classic WoW. Okay, I'm keeping tabs on this every other day. Compare Shadowlands. Okay. So this is past 12 months. So Shadowlands is the red and Classic WoW is the blue. Let's do the past 30 days. Let's hyper zoom in here. 30 days. Okay, so right now, Shadowlands has about 4 times the search interest of Classic WoW. Okay. Now, people always ask about Classic-TBC. Classic-TBC. Let's see. Pretty much non-existent, right? Doesn't fucking exist. Unless there's a better search term that you would look for. Like Burning Crusade? I doubt it. I think the search term is gonna be Classic-TBC, right? TBC Classic? TBC Classic. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Classic-TBC is what the search term would be. Just try TBC. Okay, also non-existent. Let me remove one of these. Let me get rid of TBC Classic. Just TBC? Okay. TBC. TBC. Yeah, non-existent pretty much. And this also, because it's not as specific as these other things, this might have search relevance. Like maybe there's a plumbing company like Jeffrey's TBC Plumbing or something. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean? So, actually, I'm curious. I've always called it Classic WoW. What's more popular, WoW Classic or Classic WoW? Let me remove some of these. Okay, this is blue is Classic WoW. Let's add WoW Classic. WoW Classic. Literally, you know what? It's the same thing. As far as Google's concerned, it's the same thing. It's not that they're exactly on top of each other. It's that they are literally the same thing. It doesn't differentiate the order between the two. Yeah, it's just the same. Okay. Vanilla WoW. Also, it's gonna be no one even uses that term anymore, other than like probably private server Andes. Vanilla WoW. Yeah, it's a fucking dead term. Okay. Hey, Shadowlands has like stabilized out at a decent spot. That's actually really good. That's actually really good. Let me keep playing the video here. Let me pull this up.
The idea that the main game moves forwards, but there is a cutoff for the classic content. There are already repopulation or server life support projects being put on by players currently to stimulate a fresh experience. I don't see why this still couldn't be a thing even once TBC is out on legacy classic servers. If the demand is there, it should happen. On top of this, the guys who want to remain in classic and play around with their phase 6 BIS are also able to do that. So this is kind of heading in the right direction in my opinion. And I could actually see something very similar to this happening. And now the slightly more reaching bit, I guess. Because say this happened, we would have our current servers, which would be on TBC, our legacy classic server, which is frozen in phase 6, but people like fresh a lot. And repopulation projects,
they should do all three.
Well, it's not quite the same. You're going to have 60s and full BIS running around.
They should do all three. There's no argument to not do all three. And then also, they should do a fourth one where it's hardcore servers. They should have hardcore servers where if you log in, you level up. If you die, your character's deleted. That's the final step. Like, that would be so fucking sick. 4 different types. So you'd have, like, expansion progressive servers, so each version becomes the next version, as it did back in the day. They should have the stasis servers. They should have fresh. They should have hardcore. They should have all 4. Easy, dude.
On PvP servers, auction house prices are going to be all over the place. Easy access to getting boosted.
Hardcore would be badass.
60, or just depending on how easy gold is to make. Dungeons or early raids are going to be pretty scarce. BGs below level 60 will be literally non-existent. And even at 60, it will be peak time players or holiday weekends for PvP mainly. So then, can we fit fresh into the equation somewhere? I think we can. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been running some polls because, I mean, there's quite a few of you guys here who are super passionate about the game, and I'm happy to be sort of an opinion lightning rod as much as I can. Thank you all so much again for voting. You just never know who may be seeing or hearing these things. And with over 25,000 votes over the space of 2 weeks, that is, yeah, that's a lot. So let's check the results and then I'll tell you the big brain idea, okay? Poll number 1. If Blizzard re-released Classic now with the same release/patch schedule as it was from launch in 2019, would you play it again? Only 11% of voters were heavily in favour of a copy-paste Classic re-release, 24% would give it a go, maybe just for the hype at the start, 18% were kind of indifferent to the idea, and 47% with a straight-up no.
So straight up, like, not that many people give a fuck about Fresh. That's actually kind of astounding. The fresh, the fresh demographic, they're very, very, very vocal. Like fresh people fucking love fresh. Here's a problem with fresh Andes though, and this was a problem back in the. This was a problem for like 8 years on private servers. Fresh Andes, they only play the game for like 3 months and then they quit and they're looking for another fresh. Fresh Andes are like heroin addicts, right? They're trying to get that. They're trying to get that rush. They're trying to get that high. Trying to get that fresh. They get it and then they move on looking for another one, dude. That's how it is.
They're not
Fresh
interested
Andes.
in starting again. So aggregate-wise, 35% of responses were more on the positive side, 75% were more negative. Poll number 2. If Blizzard re-released Classic with significant changes from how it was in 2019, would you play it again? I deliberately worded the poll and the answers similar to the last one. This one hit 10,000 votes in a day too, which is just unreal. The examples of changes I suggested in the poll included things like lowering or removal of spell batch window, removal of melee leeway, disabling world buffs in raid content, adjusting XP when grouped with higher level players, AoE caps, raid tuning, class tuning, progressive itemization, talents or gear, and so on and so forth. 13% were fully in favour, that's 2% more than the copy-paste release. 46% would give it a try for the hype still, or to see how the game plays out with changes. It'll be one of those two reasons. I think it would have more longevity than the previous, as you'd have to start hitting the endgame to fully appreciate all the changes made. 13% were indifferent, and 29% were not interested. Add them up again, the more positive.
So I'm thinking for myself now, let's say they do Classic TBC, and like 3 months after Classic TBC comes out, they decide to do Fresh, right? So at this point, you could play both. You could play TBC, it's been out for 3 months now, or you could try Fresh Classic re-release. Would I even play Fresh Classic re-release? I mean, yeah, like at that point, 3 or 4 months in, that's probably the right time to do it because TBC, there's not a lot to do. Like Nomi says in chat, TBC is very raid loggy at that point. You're just logging into your either you're farming arena all day, you're raid logging, or you're leveling alts, doing stuff on alts, playing alts, right? TBC definitely gets kind of raid loggy. Like this poll is suggesting, and I'm not surprised, people feel this way. The yes, I'd give it a go. At least 46% of people say yes. The question is, would you play Classic re-release with significant changes? Yeah, I would be more interested in that. I made that video. It actually popped the fuck off talking about changes I think they should make to Classic WoW. Like, yeah, there's a long list of changes I think they should make to the game. And I've talked about them all a million times, but there is a very good list of changes they should make. I wonder what he's going to say here. Pudgy Pants, thank you. Thank you very much for the resub. Thank you, man. Good fucking morning.
Responses were 59% negative.
Oh, Serifimi, 2 months. I just saw that also. Thank you.
So that adds
Thank
up
you.
to 101%. It's because of magic. Okay, let's move on. So just over 1/3 of players were somewhat interested in a pure Classic copy-paste, and over half the voters were interested in Classic, but with lots of changes.
Yeah.
So, what changes are the best for the game? Well, that is the $1 million question. I think change should always aim to keep Classic within the spirit of the game, a sentiment which Blizzard has recently echoed, and have really begun to acknowledge the fact that players these days are just quite a bit different from how they were back in the early 2000s. They've even doubled the amount of time the Scourge invasion will happen as well in Phase 6, so they're definitely starting to acknowledge it. And in keeping things in the spirit of Classic, you can rebalance classes through talents, through scaling, and then again there are things which just don't fit in, like LFG or LFR, and perhaps even rework large portions of the game just to keep it interesting and new. This is where the idea comes in of having seasonal servers. Fresh Classic servers that will only exist for a predetermined period of time, 4 to 8 months or so in the long run, because everyone has a different idea of what changes will be.
What is the shortest amount of time you could have Classic be on a seasonal timeline and not have it feel too rushed? Right now, our Classic experience is going to be... How long has Classic been out? It came out in August of last year. Yeah, it's been like a year and a half. I think Classic should be on a 12-month cycle. If we're doing seasons, I think 1 year, 12 months... is a really good timeline. I really, really think it's a good timeline. Yeah. And there are so many positives. It would make the raid content more difficult. It would, at the end of every phase, you've had a month or a couple weeks at the end of every phase where people start quitting. There's not a lot to do. So by, shaving off 5 or 6 months off the back end, compared to the timeline we have now, which is a bit longer, like I said, you would get rid of all those like boring parts at the end of each phase. The second you start to get bored, kind of getting bored, boom, new phase, right?
Best, both ourselves
It'd be really
and
good.
Blizzard, I imagine. It removes the obstacles of A, making people who just want to play Classic unhappy by having a separate legacy service. B, creates an environment with no...
You don't think it would make sense for Classic because it takes so long to level up? Yeah, but I mean, like, leveling is not bad if everyone else is also leveling, right? Leveling feels shitty right now, and it has for the last, like, 8 months, because of mage boosting. You feel like the one dumb fuck that's actually playing the game normally, and you feel like you're wasting your time because you could just go sit in an instance and get leveled 5 times faster by paying a mage to boost you. If everyone, like, if the game is shorter, there's no mage boosting, and everyone else around you is also doing low-level dungeons and forming groups for elite quests, it feels a lot more enjoyable, right? It feels a lot more enjoyable.
Expectation of long-term ramifications from the nature of changes and opens up avenues for creativity. C, it doesn't further split the player base with expectations to progress to TBC with just pure fresh serve.
Like, dude, I'll say, like, leveling in Classic during the first 3 months of the game, like, the first 3 months of the game, the world was so fucking alive. And a lot of people, it did take them 2 or 3 months to hit 60. A lot of people leveled slowly. There were elite quests, there were dungeon teams, like, you know, doing fucking Uldaman or Maradon or whatever. You're not getting boosted. Of course, there was boosting back then. People were doing it. It hadn't caught on as much, but still, even with the small amount of boosting that was going on, it was still super, super fun. And it was fun for a long time. It was very lively.
Others. Done for the raid with the week? Okay, I'm going to go hop on the seasonal server and level my enhancement shaman, who are now considered a top DPS. D, it creates hype around the next seasonal. These servers should aim to destroy established metas and make players want to rediscover the game. Finally, I think it's important that there isn't consistently a server up. Maybe run 2 seasonals per year, make seasonal seasonal. Stick to the expectation that it won't last forever and that you aren't playing it solely for the character progression, but to experience the changes that have been introduced.
Dude, if you have Classic on a 6-month timeline, no one's clearing Nex. Like, your average player is not clearing Nex. Think about how much struggle people have with Nax right now. People are going into Nax with full Blackman Layer Bisque gear, half or close to full AQ40 Bisque gear, rank 14 gear, whatever, and they're still fucking wiping, right? And they're spamming consumes. There's world buffs. Like, if you Nax on a situation like that, like a faster release timeline, holy fuck, Nax is gonna be fucking brutal, dude.
Think this all sounds like total nonsense and you just want to play Classic? Legacy server would still be there for you. Honestly, I reckon a very large portion of the private server community would be all over this kind of idea as well. Oh, and you would obviously need things like increased XP rate. Next to no one is going to play a seasonal server, which takes like 7 days to level to 60 on. Just to recap then, current server progressive to the Burning Crusade, legacy classic server on phase 6, seasonal classic servers which are fresh, with major changes to make the game a new experience. Now, you're probably typing in the comments as I speak, yeah, good one, mate, like Blizzard would ever actually invest money into the game. And, yeah, I did say it was pretty idealistic, right?
Where I see this, I've seen this question pop up twice. What do you think about Classic with 2 resets a week if you're doing, like, a more compressed timeline like that? Here's the thing, like, does anyone really like raiding that much? Does anyone want to do Molten Core 8 times a month? Fuck that. Fuck that. And I can say that I did Molten Core 8 times a month because I've always done split runs. I've always done it on 2 characters, so I've done that. But so for me, if I'm doing split runs, like, I'm doing Molten Core fucking 16 times a month. Fuck that. Fuck that shit, dude.
Also, yes, this is heavily inspired.
I want some free time.
Leagues, which are amazing, by the way, and really put new life into the game. I reckon this kind of format could work in WoW and even be extendable to other expansions in the future. Even without the whole seasonal thing, which is probably just me dreaming, even though I'd bet it would be very popular, I think that the progressive for current copy to legacy servers would also still be the way to go. But that's just what I think. I reckon it'll meet the most players' demands too. So then, what do you reckon? Would seasonal be interesting to you? Do let me know, I'm curious about it. As always, thanks all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon. If you like what you see, do give the video a like and subscribe, as there will be...
Dude, I'm thinking, like, there's no way you could do a 6-month Classic WoW timeline. You couldn't do 2 of them a year. There's no fucking way. Like, a lot of people, it's gonna take people 2 months to level up again. People take a long time to level, and this time you would hopefully not have the mage boosting meta. Hopefully, like in a classic changes sort of like seasonal situation, they would break mage boosting. They would ideally get rid of world buffs. They would change a lot of things that helped people level more quickly anyway. So people level even slower than the first time probably. I think if you're doing a seasonal classic, you have to do it on a yearly basis, 12 months long. 12 months is a good timeline for seasonal classic. I really do. I get it's a long time. A year is a long time, but I think it's actually right for classic. I really do. Let me link out his video here. There's no way. I think a year is what it should be.
I will catch you in the next one.
There it is. Yeah, man, that's what I would do.